Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Diablo III. Today on the channel, we're taking a look once again at the Mundunugu Witchdoctor set, which is the Season 22 starter set for the Witchdoctor. So, these are the basically free abilities that you get. The 2-piece bonus, Big Bad Voodoo follows you around. 4-piece bonus, 60% damage reduction based on the amount of Spirit Barrage that you have up, and obviously the 6-piece bonus for the set has a increased damage to Spirit Barrage. This is, for all intents and purposes, a Spirit Barrage set. We are also going to be using the Captain Crimson's belt and pants in the set because obviously Captain Crimson relies on doing more damage based on the amount of cooldown reduction, and this set has a lot of cooldown reduction. The rings here are just placeholders at the moment. Gazing Demise will allow you to do a lot more damage with Spirit Barrage. Flavor of Time, people prefer Compass Rose. I prefer this one because I like to increase the amount of pylons and their duration. So I have Piranha, Spirit Barrage, where all your major damage is going to come from, and you'll see that in a moment. Spirit Walk, because whenever you enter the uniformed land, you will get an increase to your damage based on the Mundunugu set. Soul Harvest, which is going to come in very handy thanks to the weapon we have. Big Bad Voodoo, which is Ghost Trace because it's going to follow us around and basically do reduction of damage. We have Locust Swarm. So we also have for abilities Spirit Vessel, Blood Ritual, Graven Justice, and Confidor's Ritual. The Barber is in our cube, Mask of Jerome, and a Ring of Royal Grandeur so that we're able to use the Captain Crimson set. For our weapon, we are using a Sacred Harvester, which allows us to get 10 stacks of Soul Harvest, which is very important because once you get to 10 stacks of Soul Harvest in the Mundunugu set, you get an insane amount of damage increase. You're looking at anywhere between 24 to about 30k damage, the way I have the armor particularly optimized at the moment. Keep in mind this armor is not fully optimized. We're going to do a couple of greater rifts. I'm going to start with the lower ones to show you how fast you can actually speed farm. Now, basically, you're going to be doing 3 things from the beginning. You're going to start automatically once you get into the Grey Rift and cast your Spirit Barrage. Then you're going to cast your Big Bad Voodoo automatically. Then pretty much whenever you run into a large area of mobs, you are going to want to pop off a Soul Harvest. And you will want to try to find a lot of opportunities and a lot of mobs to be able to Soul Harvest. But for all intents and purposes, Spirit Barrage is going to do a lot of damage for you. Pretty much is going to clear things sometimes on the lower Greater Rifts before you even have a chance to Soul Harvest. Now, keep in mind, not Soul Harvest, but Spirit Barrage takes a little bit of getting used to. When you see an enemy, you're pretty much going to have to just lightly tap. If you hold it down, it will continue to attack the mob until it is able to kill it. So it's not recommended to hold it down. You really just want to tap the button that you have particularly Spirit Barrage assigned to and just keep lightly tapping it. The only time you're really going to hold it in is when you run into a elite pack that is not dying very quickly. Another thing that you want to do is whenever you have a chance, Spirit Walk, because Spirit Walk will allow you to move faster. And as I mentioned before, thanks to the Mundunugu set, whenever you enter the uniform land and come back out of it, you get like an increase of damage reduction, which is very, very important. But for all intents and purposes, always pretty much you want to make sure that your Big Bad Voodoo is always up. You want to make sure that you can always try to maintain at least the 10 stacks of Soul Harvest, so you have to keep an eye on that counter in particular as well. I recommend really the 10 stacks of Soul Harvest when you are in higher Greater Rifts. I'm talking about Greater Rifts 80 particularly and above, as those are the times when you have more chances to get them. Really, I didn't have to tap in too much for those elite packs because I have been Soul Harvesting a little bit here. So that's pretty much it. This is how you basically effectively speed farm through a Greater Rift using the Mundunugu set. And as I mentioned before, Mundunugu is the Season 22 starter set for the Witchdoctor, meaning that if you selected the Witchdoctor for your class for Season 22 of Diablo, upon completion of Chapter 2, 3, and 4 of the seasonal journey, you will be awarded your 6 pieces of the Mundunugu set. Basically, it works this way. When you complete the Chapter 2 season journey, you will get 2 pieces of the Mundunugu set through Hadred's Gift. When you complete Chapter 3, you will get another 2 pieces of Hadred's Gift. When you complete Chapter 4, you will get the remaining 2 pieces. You are always guaranteed in a seasonal journey when you complete their Hadred's gift challenges to get a complete set of your starter set, which in the case of the Witchdoctor is Mundunugu. Case in point, as you can see here, it is an extremely powerful S-tier armor. If you're doing Season 22, keep in mind that you will need to get a Captain Crimson's belt and pants, which is not part of the set, and you're going to need a Ring of Royal Grandeur. You could get Ring of Royal Grandeur by completing bounties on Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of the world map. So you can honestly do those and farm that way. In order to get Captain Crimson, you're going to have to do many, many bounties. You're going to have to wait till the plans actually become available to you. Sometimes you'll find them off the goblins. Sometimes you'll find them off things. So that's going to take you a bit of farming as well for it. But even without Captain Crimson, the armor will be able to take you at least to Greater Rift 60 and above if you have good optimization. Good optimization in regards to this set would be you want high crit hit rate damage and high crit rate hit ratio. Particularly on your helm, you want high crit hit ratio, at least 6%. On your gloves, you want primarily the best output for that would be high crit ratio, which would be 6%. You want high crit hit damage, which would be 50%. If you can get a attack +7 or attack +8 on your gloves as well, that will go a very long way. I want to show you there, guys. This is after 10 stacks of Soul Harvest, that now my attack stat is in the 29k range, which will allow me to pretty much plow through enemies with great ease. So you can see here, a lot of things are going on, particularly here. This is very effective S-tier armor. Captain Crimson really is what pushes it over the edge. I will tell you, it's going to take you quite a bit to get a very good Sacred Harvester, and you need that as an Ancient Legendary, because Ancient Legendary will allow you to get the best possible roll in terms of its damage output, because you need it to be the highest damage rate that you could possibly get on it. On your rings, you want to get, wherever you can, high crit hit ratio and crit hit damage, or crit damage, you know, as high as you can get it, preferably 100%, 99%, as high as you can possibly go. These are things that you have to look out for throughout your seasonal journey. Keep in mind, when you do get your Hadred's Gift, you're not guaranteed necessarily Ancient Legendary pieces, so you will have to probably continue to farm for more parts of Mundunugu so that you can swap out things for Ancient Legendary. Why is it important to switch out for Ancient Legendary? For those of you who are not familiar, you will not be able to augment gems into your armor unless it's Ancient Legendary or higher value. In order to do that, obviously, you're going to have to farm quite a bit, because it's very, very rare. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's quite rare that you are going to run into a situation where you open all your Hadred's Gift and you get perfect Ancient Legendary rares. You will definitely not get a Primal Ancient Legendary. The only way to be able to get a Primal Ancient Legendary if you're playing in a season of Diablo III is by completing a Greater Rift 70. Now, if you're not playing in Season 22 and you're just doing this off-season, so it's a non-seasonal character, as long as any of your previous characters have actually completed a Greater Rift 70, all classes that are non-seasonal have access to Primal Ancient Legendaries dropping. But for seasonal, keep in mind, once again, for seasonal characters, you must clear a Greater Rift 70 before you will see Primal Ancient Legendaries drop. So there's no point in the beginning of a seasonal journey trying to get Primal Ancient Legendaries. It's impossible to get them. You won't get them. You have to complete a Greater Rift 70. I wanted to clarify that because that's a question that has come up on social media from people who ask me, that watch the videos. And like I say, I always appreciate everybody that watches the videos, all the support, all the input, whether it's positive or negative. I try to address it, and I try to, you know what, get back to you guys. Sometimes it takes me a little longer to respond to you guys. I know, you know, I do a lot of things. I don't only just play Diablo 3, although I appreciate the fact that Diablo 3 is one of the video series that people seem to like the most on the channel. Keep in mind, in that particular situation with the Rift Guardian, I had to continue to hold in Spirit Barrage because I need for Bane of Stricken and Bane of the Trap, as well as some of the abilities, all multiply together to do accumulative damage so that when you release it, it kills the Rift Guardians. That's kind of one of the things you have to do with the majority of the Rift Guardians as you go higher up in the Greater Rifts with the Mundunugu set. There's not particularly ever going to be a situation where you're going to run into the Rift Guardian and be able to one-shot it. Not with a Spirit Barrage set. It doesn't really work that way. Because Spirit Barrage relies on accumulative damage for very tanky mobs. As you saw there, that was like a 3-minute clear time. So we are moving up in the Greater Rifts as well, yet again. I wanted to show you exactly how fast. So let's see, that was a Greater Rift 60, 65. This will be a 70 Greater Rift, so you can see how well the armor still functions on Greater Rift 70. As always, the plan of action once you begin a Greater Rift is immediately go for casting Spirit Barrage, then cast Big Bad Voodoo. Then you really want to do a Spirit Walk just so you can get not only speed through there, but as well as when you come out of the Uniform Land, you're going to get a damage increase. Also keep in mind that because of Captain Crimson, the amount of cooldown that we have on our armor allows us to do more damage and take more damage, so that's why particularly Captain Crimson is used on this set. Because with the Mundunugu set in particular, you're going to have an insane amount of cooldown reduction thanks to the way this is particularly set up. Now, for those of you who don't necessarily do as well with visual content and you need more of a, on paper type of guide as to exactly every armor piece that you need, exactly every ability, well, you're in luck. That's available in the description. There is a link to the armor that I am using in the description. The only difference from the link version that I gave you to my version is that in the link version, it's going to recommend that you use 2 rings that I'm not using currently at the moment because I haven't gotten good ancient legendary rolls for them with good desirable stats. So I'm using in place of them literally of the undead as well as the Wailing Host, which allows me to get a bit more power also out of my particular armor because a lot of my pieces, if not all of them, are ancient legendary value or higher. So it gives me more in damage degree. But I will show you particularly the rings that you need in particular with the link description. Another difference is they use a compass rose for additional cooldown reduction. I'm not using that because I actually kind of prefer to use Flavor of Time in place of that because I'm actually really a big fan of keeping pylon effects going quite a bit, and it also helps really supplement a lot more damage for particularly Mundunugu as opposed to the extra cooldown. This set already has a great amount of cooldown as it is that, you know what, I don't necessarily need to use the Traveler's Pledge Necklace to be able to get more cooldown reduction. So that's one of the differences you're going to see between my version of the build versus the one that's in the link description. So honestly, you can swap out for what they recommend, or you could keep what I recommend, which would be the Flavor of Time over that. And pretty much you could want to go with the ring. The only reason I'm not using the rings from the link description is because I, again, have not really found a good role for them with desirable stats. I actually ended up with a very good Legacy of Nightmares ring set. So it allows me, for those of you who are not familiar with the Legacy of Nightmares set, it's the Litany of the Undead and Wailing Host. Basically, those rings in conjunction say, for every ancient legendary armor piece that you have, this includes rings and weapons and necklaces, you get a increase to your attack stat. This also includes if the Litany of the Undead and Wailing Host rings are ancient legendary. I just happen to have ancient legendaries of those with really good rolls, so it allows me this particular armor to get into the 2K range. Usually when I actually hit a Big Bag Voodoo and I get everything really going in regards to Soul Harvest, I'm looking at sometimes 32k damage that I'm able to put out with the way the armor is set up right now, which is what allows me to clear through these higher graders with ease. So again, with Spirit Barrage, it's really Spirit Barrage is going to do all your damage. Spirit Walk will allow you to keep moving at super fast speed. And when you come out of Uniform Land, you'll get a lot of defense. Every time you run into areas of mobs with high density, make sure to cast a Soul Harvest. You really want to get at least the full 10 stacks of Soul Harvest off thanks to Sacred Harvester so that you can have the highest intelligence stat possible going into this. This is going to take a little bit, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold the button in for Spirit Barrage, and then what I would normally do, I didn't get to do it there in particular, is I will cast a Spirit Walk. Why? Because when you cast Spirit Walk, you are invincible when you're in the Uniform Land, so when you come out of it, usually the Rift Guardian is going to be dead already. So let's talk a little bit about the ancient legendary gems that you, or I should say legendary gems that you're using here. You want Bane of the Trap, Bane of the Stricken, and Goaka Swiftness. Those are the 3 gems that you should put into your necklace and 2 ring slots. Don't use any other one. Now, people are going to be asking, well, what about Bane of the Powerful? All right, when you're beginning the beginning of your seasonal journey, Bane of the Powerful you can use in place of Bane of the Stricken because it's going to do a lot more for you until you hit around greater of 70 and above. When you get to 70 and above, case in point here, we're in a greater of 75, so I got to be actually a little bit careful here as I'm talking. You want to keep in mind that, like, once you get to greater of 70, enemies have a lot more HP and can do a lot more damage to you. So what you want to do in those situations is you want Bane of the Stricken, because Bane of the Stricken says for every time that you continue to attack an enemy and you haven't killed it, you do an increased amount of damage. So since most mobs, it's going to take a lot of time to do, take them out in general, Bane of the Stricken will give you a lot more mileage and be able to take out some of those higher Rift Guardians a lot more fast and a lot more effectively with ease. This also applies to Elite Packs, because in higher greater rifts, Elite Packs as well have a lot more HP, case in point here as you saw. So you want to definitely use a Bane of Stricken. Bane of the Trap is great because although we are not necessarily using particularly any abilities that cause status effects to the mob, when you level up a Bane of the Trap gem to level 25, it has roughly, I would say, about a 50% chance whenever you cast a particular ability to cast slow, which then, on top of that, will apply the cumulative damage from Bane of the Trap as well. So basically, the first ability works. So thanks to the second ability of Bane of the Trap, you get a status effect, which in this case is slow, and then that actually will trigger the first part of Bane of the Trap's gem abilities. So keep that in mind. That's why Bane of the Trap is a little too good. I've always felt like they should probably nerf how Bane of the Trap works, particularly the second part of the ability, because the fact that it's able to cast slow makes it so splashable in a lot of armor builds, because it's just like no reason not to run it in a lot of armor sets, as opposed to, you know, there's only a very niche few that probably will forgo using Bane of the Trap because they don't necessarily need it, as opposed to other things. One of the ones that kind of can come to mind is some of the Necromancer sets that, or Leap Quick Barbarian really doesn't need Bane of the Trap because it needs more so Bane of the Stricken and other gems as well. So, and obviously a pet build rarely will use Bane of the Trap. Some of them will. Typhoon is the only set that really can come to mind where it uses Bane of the Trap plus Enforcer to be able to do a lot of damage. Other than that, they're like a pet build Marauder really wouldn't use it, for example. So that's one of the things you want to keep in mind. Another thing is, obviously, for the Witchdoctor, your starter says Mundunugu, which is great. The rest of the armors for Witchdoctor, in case you wanted to at some point swap out this, which I wouldn't recommend during your seasonal journey, are not really that good. Arachnid's kind of gotten a bit of a boost. Mundunugu is really the end-all to be-all. It's one of the best armors in the game. It's considered in the top 5 S-tier list for Diablo Season 22. Only really is going to pale in comparison to Whirlwind Barbarian, as well as Gears of Dreadland Demon Hunter. Gears of Dreadland Demon Hunter was the video that we did on Friday, so if you by any chance haven't taken a look at that particular thing and you're looking for one of the more higher up on the tier list builds, and you like the Demon Hunter class, definitely make sure to check out that video. Crusader has Valor Satyr as its starter build, which I will be covering later on, I believe next week. And you can definitely check that out so you can see what that particular armor is all about. Although it's really for the season all about Bombardment Crusader, because it just does a lot of damage. It has way more potential. That's considered to be potentially the S-tier armor of the season as it stands. It's just really powerful. It was F-tier armor, and now it's like pretty much the end-all to be-all for S-tiers. Okay, case in point here, I'm going to pretty much hold in Spirit Barrage. All that cumulative damage, thanks to Bane of the Trap and Bane of the Stricken, is what takes out the Rift Guardians when they have a lot of HP. So keep in mind, that's really the only time you're really going to have to hold in Spirit Barrage for a lot. Most of the time, you're just going to be tapping it in. Looks like I have way too many ancient legendary weapons that I did not, or even ancient legendary pieces that I did not identify here. Or not necessarily ancient legendary, but legendary, I should say. So correction to me on that one. Alright, I'm going to augment gem here. Keep in mind, I'm not using this particular gem in the armor, but I am augmenting it because I'm going to use it to augment one of my armor slots. Because, like I said before, once you get into high grade rift, Bane of Powerful is pretty much useless for this particular Witchdoctor set. Alright, so that was probably going to be a 4-minute clear time. Yeah, just about 3 minutes and 59 seconds. So that's super fast. That was Greater Rift 75. This is Greater Rift 80. Greater Rift 80, Torment 16 plus difficulty, basically. So Torment 16, the mobs are going to have a lot of HP. They can do a lot of damage to me. There is a very high potential for me to get squashed here, so keep that in mind. On higher Greater Rifts, don't get discouraged if you get squashed. Case in point here, look at all these poison pools. They will do a lot of damage to me. One thing to note when it comes to the Witchdoctor class is the Witchdoctor is kind of a lot like the Necromancer in the sense that they are very squishy, which means they don't have a lot of defense naturally. They're not very good in terms of vitality. Most of the time when you're building a speed-filled variant of armor, you're not really going to want to focus on having a lot of defense. That's something that usually comes later on when you're getting into Greater Rift 20 or 30. Or not 20 and 30, I should say, but Greater Rift 120 to 130 plus. That's really when you start considering whether you need defense with gems as opposed to... But for pretty much every speed build, you're always going to want to focus on pretty much getting the highest attack stat possible so you can speed through things. And really, you're going to get whatever defense that you're not getting by placing a gem in your armor, you're getting it back from just Spirit Walking, because Spirit Walking, when you come out of Uniform Land, is going to give you the defense buff. Then you have to keep in mind that the Captain Crimson set, automatically based on the number of cooldown reduction that you have, is going to give you a defensive buff as well as a damage buff. So, you know, these are things that you do when you're running armors to mitigate exactly why, you know, it kind of mitigates the fact that you're not running defensive gems, particularly in these builds. You can run necessarily whatever gems you want into it, and it will work if it's just not going to do as much damage, and you're not going to see as fast of a clear time on these higher greater rifts if you start to deviate in that way. And that really depends on you, because you have to ask yourself, are you the type of player that just wants to get high up in the greater rift list and you're not worried about speed for leaderboard placement? If that's the case, then that's when you kind of start looking into investing in some gems to give you a bit more tankiness, and maybe going back and optimizing things to be a bit more tanky if that's the thing. If you're one of the people that's obsessed with leaderboard position, which is a good chunk of people that place in the seasonal journeys for Diablo, or just play in Diablo in general, they want to have their name high up in the leaderboard for bragging rights. Most of the time, you're going to just want to focus first and foremost on getting the attack stack as high as possible, and then rolling eventually for the most optimal gear, which would be, I mean, ideally a Primal Ancient Legendary. So the chances of you getting a full Primal Ancient Legendary set with the perfect values that you're going to need for Mundunugu, you could be looking at anywhere between 3-4 years. You might be playing Diablo the rest of your life and maybe never get exactly what you need. Primal Ancient Legendaries are so rare when they drop. They're not guaranteed what you're going to get. It could be random. I've had Primal Ancient Legendaries drop of useless weapons, useless armor pieces. I've had things drop that are just, like, atrocious, that there's nothing that you would be using them for. So then in those particular situations, you're kind of forced to salvage them because, you know, box space is always kind of an issue, especially if you play a lot of classes and you have a lot of non-seasonal characters, because you have to share your box with just about everybody. So, you know, it hurts a lot. Like, I've had Primal Ancient Legendaries drop for Blackthorn, which is a useless armor. I've had Primal Ancient Legendaries drop for a regular weapon that I would never use on any of my classes, but it's like the perfect attack stat and everything, but I can't use it because it's something I wouldn't want to use. I had Primal Ancient Legendaries drop on double weapons. I've had Primal Ancient Legendary. I think the only one time I got a Primal Ancient Legendary that I like is usually for the Captain Crimson, because I roll a lot of those generally for a lot of the sets that I run. Now, case in point here, I had to hold in Spirit Barrage a lot longer. This enemy is taking a lot longer to take down. That's why I Spirit Walk to kind of protect myself. As you saw there, Accumulative damage from Bane Stricken and Bane Trap together, but you have to hold in Spirit Barrage a lot. So don't get discouraged if it looks like it's taking you a long time to take down a Rift Guardian, because that's just kind of how it's naturally going to go based on the way that Spirit Barrage works as an attacking ability and how it basically stacks eventually to do the most amount of damage when you release the particular trigger. Speaking of the Traveler's Pledge, see, normally if I didn't like the flavor of time I'm using, and it's my preferred way to particularly run a necklace on the Witchdoctor set, that Traveler's Pledge might be something that we would preferably like to use on this particular armor set. It's one of the things that's recommended in the armor set build that is in the description for you guys. So that was kind of a happy accident that I was able to run into that. So those are the gems I'm using: Bane Trap, Bane Stricken, Go Aqua Swiftness. I'm basically leveling these gems, this gem up here, Bane Powerful, so that I can augment it into a armor slot that I have not yet augmented. Preferably you want to do those on level 70 and up. Level 100 is probably the best, but you're not going to be able to do that in a seasonal journey until much, much, much later into it, by very, very late. Like you're looking at Chapter 12. Okay, so that was a 4-minute clear time Iron Greater of 80, which is very, very, very good for something that's not fully optimized yet. Alright, guys, so looking at everything, that's going to do it for today's episode. Make sure to give a like and subscribe.